So, at time of recording, this Season 2 video blew up more than the Season 1 video, which isn't surprising considering the title, as it maybe tricks you if it's a negative vid. Of course, blowing up by the standards of a channel as small as mine is right now isn't that huge a feat. But anyway, this video is going to be a little different than the last two. Instead of going into the plot of the entire season and then talking about the main and secondary characters of that season, I'm going to talk about the first half of that season, act like that's the entire season with the plot and the characters all in one, both main and secondary, and then I'm going to talk about the second half of the season separately. Now, why is this? Well, that's because, if you didn't know, seasons 3 through 5 and maybe season 6, so basically the rest of the series, it basically split into two separate arcs, which usually feel like two separate seasons, especially season 3. Judging by the title of this video, you probably know that I consider seasons 4 and 5 to be at least not as good, but I do think it does its best interweaving. I do think they do better at interweaving their halves than season 3 does, but I'll talk about more in the next videos. So these are usually the seasons 3 through 5 are usually split up by fans as 3A, 3B, 4A, 4B, 5A, and 5B. They aren't usually talked about as a whole season. Not always, anyway. Especially something like season 3. You could say, then, why aren't you making a separate video then if they're supposed to be separate? Because they're still full seasons. Plus, to give you the full hour experience, I would need to talk about something like entirely, and then second half talk about something entirely different, barely referencing the first half, acting like it didn't happen. Well, that's probably only season 1, the first half. I don't know, but yeah, I hope you enjoy this. I'm recording the first half of this video and the second half of this video at different times, so a few days, so you'll see how much changes as the video goes on. So, let's begin with a quick recap. Greg and Tamara, two fantastic villains with fantastic motivations, almost destroy the entirety of Storybrooke. But at the very last minute, they decide that they don't want to do that anymore. They decide they just want to kidnap a child and take him through a portal to an unknown place. So, 3 good guys, two bad guys who have a good relationship, special relationship with the child, and 1 bad guy who's just there to hit on someone, go off to find him. Meanwhile, Neil Cassidy, the child's father, is stuck in the enchanted forest while the whole gang think he's dead. So that was the cliffhanger from season 2. So we've got a lot to follow up on here. A lot of stuff to sort out. let's see how they do it. So Greg and Tamara go to Neverland to take the boy to whoever their bosses are. Henry, though, inspires them to question their authority and basically questions what they have, especially when we find out that their bosses, the Home Office, are just a bunch of teenagers. But them standing up for themselves means they get killed. And then they're barely ever mentioned in the show again. I'm pretty sure, I know Greg or Owen is mentioned later in the season in a flashback, but I don't think Tamara's ever brought up again other than like getting stolen something. I don't know, but that's what happens. Meanwhile, all of the people on the ship, everyone is getting ready to fight Peter Pan. But almost as soon as they get to Neverland, Gold abandons the team, saying they're all not worthy for this mission, and goes off on his own. This is also because Gold has a secret plan of his own, which does not include the others. So you could argue he's lying here, and I wouldn't be shocked either. But later it does expand that Gold's right, as 4 out of the 5 remaining fight horrendously over how to handle a mermaid they are interrogating. And Emma, and it soon turns physical. Emma has to break up the fight, so she jumps into the water, risking her own life. What? Meanwhile, Henry thinks that he has escaped with another boy, but that boy actually turns out to be Peter Pan himself, the person they are escaping from. So yeah, if you haven't noticed yet, this is a dark retelling of Peter Pan, with Peter Pan explicitly being the main villain of the entire arc. This is obviously not the first arc retelling of Peter Pan. I don't even know it's the first time Peter Pan has explicitly been portrayed as the villain, but it's still an interesting twist on the story. People have said Peter Pan is like secretly the villain. He like kidnaps people from homes and makes them forget and everything. He's secretly the villain. Whoa. Which is basically told about every protagonist these days, especially Disney protagonists. I've never thought that as Peter Pan's, well, he's just a kid. He probably doesn't know how bad anything he's doing. He's just portrayed as an innocent, dumb kid. So, I don't think it's that big an issue. But here, they explicitly portray him as the villain, and it is very good. They portray him as like this hard-hitting leader of the Lost Boys, leader of Neverland, who wants to do everything for magic and kidnaps Henry. We don't know his plan yet. There's a bit of mystery around him. And he's played fantastically by Robbie Kay. Pulls off a magnificent performance. So, this is a different take on Peter Pan, and you're going to see this as I go through the review. So the gang gets ashore and decide to find Pan's hideout themselves on land. But things aren't going smoothly because, well, they don't know what they're looking for. Pan offers to give Emma a map as long as she stops denying who she is, which, after a big fight, is then revealed to be a lost girl. So they've got the map, but obviously this doesn't last, as Pan has keeps moving his hideout. So whenever they get close, they get further away. Pan gets further away. So they go to... So they go to ask Hook's old fairy friend for help. This fairy friend, you might know, we might know as Tinkerbell, one of Disney's biggest mascots. Now, Tinkerbell, though, refuses to help because she rightfully, well, not rightfully, it's really the Blue Fairy's fault, but she holds contempt against Regina because of, and blames her for her loss of, for the loss of her wings. So due to her history, Tink does not agree. But when offered a chance to go home, get out of Neverland, she agrees, but she is back off again once they tell her they don't actually have an escape plan. How do you not? Never mind. Meanwhile, Neil, in the Enchanted Forest, with help from Mulan and Robin Hood, is able to get to Neverland, as he was there for a very long time and was apparently the only person to get out without Pan's permission. So he knows what to do here, right? So he does. And so he manages to get back and reunites with his father, who so far is starting to go crazy, seems to be hallucinating, and basically is freaked out. But while Rumpel originally dismisses Neil as not worthy, like he did everyone else, they eventually team up when Neil says he has a plan that might not include Rumpel sacrificing himself. So they team up until they find Pan, and Pan tells Neil about the prophecy and that Henry will be his undoing. But so this means Neil assumes that Rumpel wants to kill Henry. So he goes away and is immediately captured by Pan. So while this is all happening, the others are looking. The others, still thinking Neil is dead, look around his cave for clues of a way how he got off that island. And they don't seem to find much, but after a few mishaps, Pan tests Hook and tells them that Neil is alive, as but others go and save him, except Regina, who thinks it's all a farce and leaves the others and goes off on her own, only to run into Rumpel, who tells her that he may have a way where they can survive after all. A box that can trap Pan inside. This is where I want to talk about something in my last video. In my last video, I said that they could not stop Cora without killing her. Now, this has proved me wrong. Rumpel could have told them about Pandora's box, and they could have used that to trap Cora inside, and that at least serves the purpose of defeating her. The problem with that is Rumpel would have died. So while there is a way to defeat Cora without killing her, Rumpel still would have died. So they couldn't do both. So I still stand by my view that killing Cora was a necessary action. Of course, though, Gold left the box in his shop, so he can't go back and find it. Or can he? Because Regina tries to ask for help from another one of her old enemies. Someone we all know and love as Ariel, Little Mermaid, who, in this case, Regina made her lose her voice after tricking her that she could get legs. But there's other ways to do it. So apparently mermaids can travel across realms, which, okay, so Regina asks her to go to Storybrooke to ask Belle for the box. Get it from Storybrooke, from Gold Shop. So obviously that happens, and they get the box back. This is the first time in this season where Storybrooke is actually shown, which your main setting not being shown for most of the season is kind of, most of the half season is kind of a risk. It's only in 4 episodes this season, and 1 is only in flashbacks. And it's amazing. It's kind of refreshing to see all the supporting cast we haven't seen over the first 6 episodes, like Leroy, Archie, Granny, who we haven't seen in the first 6 episodes. Because, well, hasn't been in the storybook, has it? They've not been in the plot. And even Belle, who's still credited as the main character, which I'll get to later, yeah, she's not there. But how the storybook happens. I really like this episode. This episode also doesn't have any flashbacks to take away from it, because there's 3 stuff going on: Storybrooke, Regina and Gold, and everyone else saving Neil. So it's pretty great. And I'll sum it up now without pictures. With some trouble getting with John and Michael, they get the box to Rumpel and Regina, which leads to them all meeting up with each other. But obviously when they do, Neil tells everyone else about the prophecy, so they restrain him. So he keeps out of trouble, but he tells them it's nothing to worry about. But they obviously don't believe him. In a way, throughout the episode, everyone gets on this, and they eventually get to Pan's hideout all together. And no one can get in except Rumpel, as we then find out that Peter Pan is Rumpel's father. Now this twist is fantastic. It is fantastic. It is the second example of the fucked up family tree in Once Upon a Time. I mean, how could you be more comprehensive than that? So, yeah. But Pan still outsmarts Rumpel and traps him in the box instead. As in Neverland, you only have to believe something for it to happen. Have to wish it for it to happen. So, yeah. Pan traps Rumpel in the box, and just as the others catch up with him, he is about to take Henry's heart for himself, so he'll become ultra powerful. Obviously, this does not happen, and after tying everyone up, Regina outsmarts him just in time, distracts Pan, and they think it's all over when Rumpel is able to trap Pan in the box. But when they get back to Storybrooke, the Shadow is free and kills the blue fairy. So obviously, Pan is still controlling Friggs from a magic box. Okay? So they try and see what's wrong. It turns out Pan has swapped bodies with Henry, which is a very good gag because they don't swap each other's voices, which is cool because I hate when we do that in body swap stories. I really, really hate it. So it's really fun seeing them play each other's characters, seeing Robbie Kay play Henry. It's really interesting. Obviously it's not a cartoon, so it's be harder to do that, but it's still good. I like body swaps. And so they swap the bodies back to swap performance spells, swap bodies back after Pan is making remodeling the Dark Curse. He's going to turn them all into slaves and erase all their memories. It's kind of inconsistent, but I'm planning to, after I've done with this 6-video season overview, to a video on how awful the curses are and how inconsistent they are in this show, and this is going to be one of them, even though it's not a curse which actually goes through, because it doesn't. Regina saves them all from the curse by making it so Storybrooke had never existed. So everyone from Enchanted Forest, so everyone has to go back to Enchanted Forest, but Henry cannot go, as he was born in the land without magic. So since Emma wasn't affected by the curse, Regina lets Henry go with Emma. You're probably wondering how Pan got defeated. Well, Rumpel sacrificed himself to kill Pan. Now, I've got some words to say about this. For one, yes, it's pretty obvious Rumpel doesn't stay dead. I don't have to be a rogue scientist to tell you that. He's in all 6 seasons of the show, and even one of the spin-offs, so he doesn't die for good. But the point is, it's a little hypocritical how they deal with Pan here compared to how they deal with Korra in season 2. As I said at the end of the video, killing Korra was necessary, and Snow killing Korra was portrayed as a harmful, selfish, and unnecessary act which darkened the good guy's heart. Killing Pan, on the other hand, was considered a noble and necessary sacrifice which redeemed a good guy. Now, in my opinion, this doesn't work, because it's a little hypocritical of the show to do this, but you could justify it by saying, oh, Rumpel sacrificing himself, or the way Snow killed Korra is worse, but maybe Rumpel killing Korra for bad reasons, or the way Rumpel killing Pan for good reasons, and Snow killing Korra because, well, selfishness. You can argue and making Regina do it, but the show doesn't present it as that. The show prevents noble sacrifice, and yes, Rumpel sacrificing himself, but he doesn't call them out, and there's no scene where it just goes, we need to make sure we don't kill Pan, and it was killing Korra, the act itself, that was considered wrong, even though I don't think it was wrong of the way she did it. So yeah. So that's the main plot. The season ends with them saying goodbye. Regina giving Emma and Henry new memories where they were happy together and Emma never gave him up. And then skips to a year later where Hook was telling them something's wrong, but she shuts him out. Leading into the second half of the season, which I'll talk about after I talk about how the characters were handled. Now, obviously this isn't going to be as long as my usual character segments. I'm going to try and not spend long on each character, because I don't want this video to be too long, and I'm still going to split it in two. So I hope you enjoy this cut down of the segments. There's not many secondary characters to talk about probably, so let's just see how this goes. So let's start weirdly with Rumpelstiltskin. Why are we starting with him? Well, because a lot of the time in this season he feels like the main character. It feels like this guy is a guy who's learning to not always go the hard way. A story about this guy trying to stand up to his father and not be like him. But he isn't even in some of the episodes yet. Every episode he's in seems to be about him. Neverland Arc seems to be his arc. He has the most important relationship with Pan and all the others, and he's mostly on his own, while everyone else is kind of themselves. And it's kind of weird seeing Rumpel as the main character, as again, he's not. But, for example, he is much less present in the second half to balance out how prominent he was in the first half. And no, that is not because they waited ages to tell us he was alive. They took us a while to say how he survived, but not that he was actually alive. Now our actual protagonist, Emma, who I like much better here. She really just plays a straight man trying to cover everything. I like how she and Regina evolve in this season, and I like how she's determined to save Henry. There's not that much to say. I'm trying to keep these segments short. So let's talk about Hook. Hook is a hard character because, again, I said at the beginning, he's just there because he has a crush on Emma and he wants to get with her, and that's very clear throughout the show. Common criticism has been at the show is that Hook only had a relationship with Emma. He didn't really change. Debatable. I don't even think Hook was really that evil in the first place, but I definitely think there was some explaining to do with that. Either way, he is still pretty good here. Colin O'Donoghue is still pretty great, and he has good lines. He has a great dynamic with David, which I love. Although I don't love David this arc. I don't at all. So then we of course have Regina, who I'm talking about later than I did the last two videos, because it doesn't really feel like Regina does much until the last few episodes. Yes, she has drama with Tinkerbell, but it doesn't really relate to the story that much. And she doesn't really have her own stuff. She's mostly just played as like the angry one in the games for the first 5 episodes. Then it's with Rumpel. And then she gets a lot to do in the final few episodes when she saves Henry and gets her true final act of redemption. Some people say at the beginning of season 3 they were all accepting of Regina. I think that isn't true at all. I think in this season it was pretty clear cut that they all still hated her, and she was working with them very reluctantly. So, yeah, I think that's obvious. Now we get to Snow and Charming. Now, I'm covering these two together because they don't really do anything different this season. So, these two
well, I like Snow this arc at least. But Charming, why aren't you telling Snow that you're dying? I know you're worrying about Henry, but you were going to let her believe a lie the whole time. Like, that is selfish as hell. You are being selfish as hell. Snow deserves better than you. I said season 2 was David's best season. I forgot how bad he was here. He's not that great in flashbacks either. He is very controlling Snow in 2 specific flashbacks. And they're both terrible. This subplot also we spend so much time on, despite the fact it doesn't relate to the actual plot as well. Hell, I spent 20 minutes explaining the entire plot to you. Did I mention David getting poisoned once? No, I didn't. It's just there, so Snow and Charming kind of something to do this season. But it is absolutely stupid. Then of course we have Neil, who is pretty good. I like him this season. I like him. I really do. He's got good dynamics with Emma, Henry, and Rumpel. Shame his character was wasted in the second half. And then Belle's still credited as a main character, but I don't really want to talk about her because she's a hallucination for 3 episodes, and then gets actually one major appearance of the reunited report. That's it. Nothing to really report. She is more in the second half, so we'll probably talk about her more there. Hi, Patrick from the future here. I realised while editing that I forgot to talk about Henry in this section. He's okay. He spends most of the season being kidnapped by Pan. That might be why I've forgotten him. But I don't know how I remember to talk about Belle and not him. But he's okay. He's a central character, but he doesn't really do much. In fact, he's kind of a MacGuffin this season if he didn't do what he does at the end, if he wasn't used at the end. But I like him getting manipulated by Pan. I like his sort of like bond with Pan. I like his belief in magic. So yeah, all around good character here. That's Patrick, can you do your thing now, please? I want you to. Now let's get to the characters who aren't credited as main characters, but are basically main characters of this half season, and not really the season after. But we will also talk about characters that got their focus episodes. So this season is mainly based on a retelling of Peter Pan. So most supporting characters this season, which got a lot to do, are part of that Peter Pan story. Starting with the obvious. As I've said throughout this video, Peter Pan is a fantastic villain. He is very intimidating. He is wonderfully portrayed. He has great dynamics of not just Rumpel, who obviously best dynamic. He has a good dynamic with Hawk. He has a good dynamic with Emma. He has a good dynamic with Henry, which is good because he's trying to manipulate. He has a good dynamic with his. He has good chemistry with the head lost boy Felix, which I'll talk about in a second. He's just great this season and one of the best villains this show has had. So now let's talk about Felix, who is the head lost boy. He's the lost boy, which is the boss of everything. He's alright. He's not really much to learn about. He's a guy who goes through hardships, and that's it. He's just there. He exists, I guess. I think it was worth talking about him, though. Tinkerbell is more prominent in this season than I remember her being. She gets wasted later on. I don't know if that was because they couldn't keep hold of the actress, but she does end her own character arc here, but I still would have liked to see her again. But she does quite a bit here. I like her relationship with Regina. I like her backstory. I like how she's tied to Hook as well. I like her character arc of her finding herself again. And I hate the Blue Fairy for what she did to her. Of course, she's called out more than she is in most things, but she still gets away scot-free for shouting at her for just wanting to help. I mean, you forced her to break your stupid rules, you stupid woman. I hate the Blue Fairy. I really do. Never mind. I'm supposed to be talking about Tinkerbell. Great character! Let's move on to a character who you wouldn't expect me to talk about. Ariel from The Little Mermaid. Not from Peter Pan, so it's weird having here. But she kind of appears like sporadically throughout the seasons. But we do get a Little Mermaid rendition where it gets merged with Snow White and with Prince Eric, even though none of the other Little Mermaid characters appear aside from those two. Well, Ursula appears too. The real Ursula. Actually, two real Ursulas, but we'll get to that in the next video, in the Season 4 video. But she's okay, I guess. She's nothing to write home about. Again, most characters aren't this season. So, yeah. And then I want to quickly touch on Mulan, because I should have talked about her earlier in the video, because her main relevance is early in the season, but I just forgot, so I'm going to talk about her here. She doesn't do much, but that's why I want to talk about her, because it seems like they were setting her up to they ended up joining the Merry Men, but when Robin Hood plays a much bigger role in the second half of Season 3, we don't see her with the Merry Men unless she returns in Season 5. It doesn't really explain why she never actually joined. So they're obviously going to do more with her character, but it was cancelled for whatever reason. So finally, I want to touch on the darlings, Wendy, John and Michael. The main characters of the original Peter Pan story. They don't play that big roles here, surprisingly, but they play big enough. They're mostly captured by Pan and forced to work with him, which is a nice twist in the dynamic in the Peter Pan story. And obviously, no romantic tension between these two there. It's stupid. But yeah. So that's what I want to talk about. And that's all the characters worth noting in Season 3A. So yeah, that's my review of Season 3A, aka the Neverland Arc, aka the best arc in the entire show. So you may notice in this video so far it's been pretty praising towards Season 3, and while the title of the video is true, the season as a whole kinda comes from part of Season 1. Season 3A is better than anything comes out of Season 1. The story about David's poison is kind of the only bad part, but Season 3B has a lot of issues, which I would still consider a 7 out of 10 experience, but it's about Season 2 good. Obviously, if it wasn't good, then the title wouldn't be true, but it's better than what we get out of our next 3 seasons. But it still has quite a few issues, which I'm going to be talking about. So the rest of this video won't be as positive. So, but negative reviews get more views anyway. So, yeah, I say that soon. So we will begin where we ended off 3A with Hook coming to Emma's house and basically telling her that her family needs help. Obviously, Emma, who doesn't remember anything about that, thinks that Hook is a crazy person, especially when he kisses her without consent, in which he continues to look like he's stalking her, because he kind of is, keep doing it, until finally, after Emma gets him arrested, he gives her a potion, which he should have just done in the first place. You were at a restaurant with her. Why couldn't you just put it in her food or drink? What? Why did you just give her the potion in the first place? But there is obviously one issue. Henry, there isn't enough memory potion for him. So Emma has to make some excuse to take Henry with him. So after Emma's boyfriend is revealed to just be a flying monkey, Emma takes Henry to Storybrooke, a place where he doesn't remember at all. In there, we see that while yes, they have their memories of who they are, they don't remember the last year they've been away. This is because, yeah, there's a new curse. And at first they think it's because of Regina, because it's always because of Regina. But this time it's not because of Regina. It's not. So they come across it and examining all the evidence, like flying monkeys and like stuff and like all stuff and all that. They find out that the person who cast the curse was, get this, the Wicked Witch of the West, who we find out in flashbacks is also, get this, Regina's sister. So yes, this half season integrates the Wizard of Oz within the universe. We're all not surprised. It's been adapted by lots of companies, so I don't think there's any rights issues, even though a lot of people think that Wizard of Oz is a Disney movie anyway. Maybe you did watching this video. So go on then. Put your shock in the comment below about it. And she's Regina's sister, which isn't really that much of a twist, as it's revealed almost straight away as she's introduced. So I wouldn't really call it that much of a twist. It's just kind of something that's there. But yeah. Well, what was I gonna what can I say? It's all well, what can I say? It's all ready. Why are you looking at me like that? Okay, fine. I got a hair and beard cut in between both halves of this video. I look different, I know. And it was also after the Inside Out 2 review for 3 people that have watched that, if you noticed. So, hi. Do you like it? Who cares? I've got no subscribers anyway. Now, let's just continue. So obviously, now that they seem to know Zelena cast the curse, they decide to do some investigating. The investigation leads to them finding out that Rumpelstiltskin is somehow still alive, who expected that, and is held captive by Zelena. You're probably wondering how someone as powerful as him got napped. Well, he has him under control of his dagger. Now, yeah. So, they try and get him back. While this is all going on, Neil is missing. And Emma considers he's like monkey. We just find him on the road one day. He said he wants to know where Henry is, but Henry doesn't remember him, and only knows his father as the guy who stole the watches and abandoned Emma. That's all he knows. But it turns out Neil brought back Rumpel with a spell which unknowingly made his own life dawn. And the reason he's still alive now is because Rumpel absorbed him. So they can find out who the witch, who has been manipulating Snow, pretending to be a midwife, to get her child. Clearly, I didn't know why that wasn't just a super red flag. Because of that, Neil sacrifices himself and is killed. As you can probably tell by my tone, I do not like this death. In fact, I fucking hate this death. This death was only done for a love triangle. Why do I think that? Because you could argue a narrative story reason. Well, Rumpel could have still been captured by Zelena. He could have still been told, and Rumpel could have still been tortured somehow by the dagger. Let's say so he still tells them eventually, and he's still looking to tell them who she is. There's not really a story reason. Plus, it doesn't make any sense at all. For example, the reason he wanted to bring back Rumpel in the first place was to get back to Emma and Henry. But the thing is, everyone who was cursed had to go back to the Enchanted Forest. Neil wasn't cursed. A lot of people have brought up this plot hole. Neil could have gone with Emma and Henry. If he wanted to get back to them so bad, then why didn't he go with them in the first place? Why? Plus, Rumpel absorbs him? What? Wait, since when was that established? Why? Where did that come from? Where did that come from? It's just like, what? So yeah, not only that, but there's just so much better options. You can argue how to get Neil out of the plot. Well, you could just have him mourn for Emma and Henry across this time.
if you want a way for Rumple to still survive, if you want a way for Rumple to still be alive, because obviously they were never going to kill him off fully, and he's essential for basically the rest of the show. So if you still want him alive, there are several ways you can do it. Number one, you just have a deal as it is. It just doesn't cost Neil his life. Say it costs Neil in danger of his life. Or you could have it be a spell that Zelena casts to like torture him. It's like a torture spell, and like this torture stops after. Or you could not have Rumple die at all, and since this is hinted at a little bit, since they didn't see the dagger, maybe Rumple never actually died at all, and you can't die by stabbing yourself with your own dagger. I mean, these solutions aren't perfect, but they're a hell of a lot better than a stupid death. It's not funny, it's not true, okay? This time at least. Who even knows anymore? So, and again, this was only done so Emma and Hook could get together. The stupid love triangle plotline in 3A didn't bother me that much because it wasn't that big a deal. It didn't feel like that big a deal. But here, this is why everyone hates love triangles. The third person in the relationship has to either get killed or turn evil, just so the main two can get together. That happens 90% of the time. And it just gets in the way of things. And so there was no narrative reason to do it. It was just for the love triangle. You can argue of, oh, if you want to Captain Sword together, what to do with Neil? Well, explore his relationship with Henry. Although they might not want to do that because that would distract from Henry's relationship with Hook, I guess. Well, just don't. Well, explore his relationship with Rumple, how they got back together and all that. It just feels like a lot of 3A was pointless because it was setting up Neil to be a father figure. 3B obviously leans towards Captain Swan, but 3A seems to be leaning towards Swanfire in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways. I guess maybe the fans look like they were going to side with Captain Swan, and then Swanfire came into things. I don't know. But also, better yet, why not put Emma, Hook, and Neil into a polyamorous relationship? After all, it was established earlier in the season that you can have more than one soulmate in our universe. And it's not like Hook and Neil have zero chemistry. There's just so many better solutions which they should have gone with instead of wasting so much potential. I've ranted on so long about this. So let's just get back to the review before I get any more angry. So Rumple tells them who the witch is, and they think they're gonna thinks they're gonna fail. But, well, are they? Zelena keeps manipulating things. For example, she poisons Hook's lips. So he can. So when he kisses Emma,
she will lose her magic, as Emma is learning magic from Regina, and light magic it seems to be the only thing that can defeat Zelena. But the gang still don't know Zelena's true plan. But they soon find out, as Zelena was so jealous of Regina getting everything while Zelena got nothing. Zelena wants to go back in time to stop Cora from giving Zelena up. So Regina's never born, and Snow's never born, and Emma's never born, and barely any of the show happens. Oh, and most importantly, Zelena gets chosen to cast Rumpel's curse. So, do they do it? No! Well, I guess a little bit, but so they just wonder how to defeat Zelena fully, better, and how to defeat her is just strange. They get them memories back of the missing year after the curse is broken, which happens because Henry touches the book and believes. You can call this contrived, but I buy it. Probably because of season 4, what happened in season 4, so there's kind of like bias after that. It does kind of come out of nowhere on first viewing of how he believed that early. But anyway, Regina kissed Henry, and that broke the curse. Then after a while, Emma kisses Hook, saves him, and that removes her magic. So now Zelena is apparently undefeatable until Regina uses light magic, and this is powerful enough to defeat Zelena for some reason. So Zelena's defeated. Rumpel is about to kill her, but Regina stops him. And then Regina gives the dagger to Belle, who thinks it's fine, but Rumpel swaps it with a fake one, so he can go and kill Zelena himself. I'm glad she's dead for good and we never see her again. Ever in the show! For some reason, this causes the time portal to open, even though some of the ingredients aren't there anymore. So, Emma and Hook both manage to fall in. And right now, Emma wants to go back to New York because she's still uncomfortable with fairy tale life. Here, they decide how they land in the Enchanted Forest at the time where Snow is wanted by Regina and everyone basically. So they try to find Rumpelstiltskin, but before that, they do a Back to the Future parody. I'm not even joking. This is a Back to the Future parody. Emma and Hook, they mess up Snow and Charming's first meeting, so they have to make them meet again. So they try and get everything in place, and they seem to have ups and downs, but it eventually works, but not without some stumbling, like Snow already using the dark fairy dust. And so, yeah, it's good. So, this experience convinces Emma to stay in Storybrooke, but it seems that nothing's all over yet. Regina has been falling in love with a guy called Robin Hood, and they seem to be very happy. But then when Emma comes back, she saves a woman from Regina, an innocent girl. And this girl, unbeknownst to everyone, turns out to be Maid Marian, Robin Hood's wife. And also Elsa is there! So, those seem to be our two cliffhangers for this season. Elsa is in Storybrooke, and Regina apparently has her happiness squashed again. Well, my tone might seem negative. I do really like the plot of this season, but I don't really want any rushing around, as we've already hit the hour mark, and I want to talk about the characters. How they were handled this season, and the differences between 3A and 3B in this case. Let's go! Let's start with Emma, who, unlike a lot of 3A, feels like the main character again. I remember this season being all about Regina, and in some senses it is, but Emma is still firmly the main character here. She is the one that does the mission primarily. Regina's the one that saves the day, sure. Well, Emma's arc is the biggest. It's about learning to live with her parents, with accepting who she is, with with her family and all that, which is nice. And obviously it's not a perfect message, but I think Emma was clearly in denial. Her moving to New York was a very selfish decision, and I think it was supposed to be. I think that a lot of times when Emma is meant to be unlikable this season, she's meant to be. So, I don't think it's a big issue. Then we have Regina, who, again, gets a lot of focus this season. Now, you see a common theme with some characters who got a lot of focus in 3A, don't really get much focus here. The only exception really is Hook, who does a lot in both halves. Regina in 3A did a lot, sure, but she was still, for the first 5 or 6 episodes, just the angry one who just they banter along with the charming. So, and this season the conflict revolves around her. As I said, Emma's still the main character, but the conflict is primarily about Regina and how it affects her. Her relationship with Zelena, her sister, who, yeah, and Regina spends a lot of it without a heart. People say that Regina, well, this is where the people who say Regina's redemption is too quick actually have a point. Because, well, it is. I don't think it sorts out rather well with like some of the people being reluctant to trust her and forgive her in the Enchanted Forest, and like everyone assuming Regina is responsible. But it just goes a little too fast after that. But it's portrayed as like them not crediting Regina when she didn't really do too much good. Yes, she let her son go. And yes, she saved the whole town. But I don't think that means that she should be forgiven for everything. Plus, the light magic stuff, her learning light magic didn't really come out of nowhere. But her defeating Zelena, they said only the most powerful light magic can defeat her. How is this the most powerful light magic? I think her having light magic makes sense, but her defeating Zelena with it was not. Now let's look at Hook. Hook is pretty good this season. I like his relationship with Emma. They have pretty good chemistry at first. I know I was very angry about Neil's death earlier because it was made for a love triangle. That doesn't mean I hate Captain Swan. In fact, Swanfire itself has a lot of issues. Captain Swan also has a lot of issues. That's mostly in later seasons where they're a proper couple, and not now. They're fine now. I like them. There's a good development of a relationship, and Hook seems to really care about Emma. Boy. Which is good, and the relationship isn't the cornerstone of the show. It's just a cute subplot in there, I guess. But yeah, I like his arc, and I like how he changes a man, how he cares about it. Now let's talk about Snow and Charming, who don't really do much this half season. They had an entire subplot in 3A, but here they don't even get that. I guess there's them learning to be better parents, but that's a very small thing. And obviously Snow is pregnant, so obviously that's useful. That barely comes into things, really. I still like them. They're way better. David is way more likable in the second half than he was in the first. But not really much to talk about. And then, of course, there's Henry, who is a very different character this season. He was the second half, obviously, because he doesn't believe, he's not in the know. We have to keep everything from him. He's like the one who doesn't know the big secrets in fantasy. The one they're trying to hide stuff from. And it's a nice contrast because he's usually just, like in season 1, he was the only one who believed. For him to be the only one who doesn't believe, it's kind of a nice contrast. So, yeah, it's pretty good. Now, and it's pretty interesting. Now, let's talk about Belle for a quick second. I said that she did more in 3B. And yeah, that is true. But again, most of it is just a relationship with Rumpel, which her entire character still revolves around of her finding solutions to save Rumpel. I like some scenes with her, like when she almost tells Regina to screw it. After Regina asks her for help, that's funny. But again, most of her scenes are just worrying about Rumpel. Her entire character revolves around him, and this is something that is even more present in seasons 4 and 5, and wasn't that present in season 2. Overall, season 3 as a whole was not Belle's best year. 3A, she did nothing. She was either a hallucination or not in the show at all. The second half, all she did was worry about her boyfriend. So, not a good season. I don't really want to talk about Neil too much, because all I'm going to say is, why did they still credit him as a main character after his death? You could argue flashbacks, but he's only in 2 of them. And they're not big parts either. They're just one scene each. So Neil, he's good this season, but again, I already ranted about his death long enough, and that's all he does in the second half. Die. Then appear in a couple of flashbacks. That's it. And finally, let's talk about Rumpel. I did him first in 3A, and so let's do him last in 3B. Again, he's an example of the opposite, where he does a lot in 3A and does very little in 3B. All he does usually is just be Zelena's unwilling slave. Well, he can't really be a willing slave, but okay, he's Zelena's slave, basically. She's controlling him with a dagger. It's an interesting change of pace. There are episodes where he appears prominently, and honestly, he was more prominent in this season than I remember. But that is still primarily his role here. A lot of it is also set up for season 4, which I hate, but we'll get to it now. A lot of this season, you can say it undercuts a sacrifice to bring him back, but I'm not sure it really does. Until season 4. Well, I don't want this to just be like ranting about what's to come. Rumpel is fine this half season. Let's just leave it there. Now, after wearing this, let's talk about the secondary characters in this season. This is probably going to be short, as I don't think there's many this season which have significant focus, unlike this half season in 3B which has significant focus, so we don't have to go over it too much, which is good because this video is already way too long. Let's just go. Firstly, there's our main villain, Zelena. I quite like her this season. She's an upbeat, sassy villain with a great dynamic with the heroes, and she's pretty threatening too. She's not as good as Pan or Cora, but she's still a pretty good villain, and I like her defeat. So yeah. Again, I'm not sure if we can call any character having a specific focus episode this season, but I think other characters from us like Glinda has a sort of focus episode. So maybe I should reference her a little bit, because she gets some backstory with her relationship with Zelena, which is quite different than the one in the story, or at least I think it is, because Glinda tries to build bridges and is really, really good. Of how they used to be friends and all that, and Zelena banished her. It's interesting. We don't actually see much of Dorothy, but we see quite a bit of Glinda. Honestly, I don't think we've got any other characters to talk about in this section. Which is good, because that makes the video shorter. But wait. While there's another focus episode, I still think it's important to talk about Robin this season. Because well, he plays a big part, Regine's love interest. He was in 3A for like 2 episodes, but he really plays a thing here. He's recast from his 1 appearance in season 2, which confusing? So did he just shapeshift into his new form or something? But anyway, he's better this season than he is in others. And his relationship with Regina is better than it is in the other 2 seasons where it's there. There's not that much to say, I just want to touch on him because it would be as big of an omission as Mulan and Aurora were in the last video, despite him not getting a focus episode. So, that was season 3B of Once Upon a Time. Also called the Oz Arc or the Zelena Arc, but primarily the season 3B. It was, while my tone has been negative in some parts of this, I do still really like this season. This half season. It's not as good as the first half, not by a long shot, and it features way more bad moments, like Neil's death, for example. But, for the most part, it's still pretty good. I like Zelena as a villain, I like the whole plot line, I like the finale, they go time traveling. It's all pretty interesting how it all goes. Obviously there are a few stumbling blocks like Neil's death, but I think they're pulled off rather well. So now we've finished the second half of the season. So let's talk about the season as a whole. Season 3 is my favourite season of the show. But as a whole, it's not, since 3B is a big downstep from 3A in terms of quality, despite 3B still being pretty good. Again, season 2 good. But it's still my favourite season, but not by that much. Season 1 edges it out. As I'd argue, season 1 is the most consistent season. Season 3 is the best, but it's also not the best a show could put out. Once Upon a Time is not my favourite show because it's that good. 3A is great. It's the best the show has ever put out. If the entire season was focused on the Neverland Arc, I don't know if they could drag it out. But if they pulled it off right, then maybe that's it. And if they didn't kill off Neil, then maybe this season will be truly amazing. But I understand them for great. So, now we get on to season 4. Spoilers, I think is the worst season of the show. I know season 5 and maybe season 6 are probably more hated, but I think season 4 is the worst. I know that's not just because of the Frozen arc, before anyone asks. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like and subscribe to my channel if you did. But if you didn't like it, still put dislike and write down a hate comment, because it's always good to keep the algorithm happy. I will see you in my next video, which will tie into my season 4 video. in a interesting way. See you later.